Hello and welcome. I'm going to talk about this list. So, one of my friends stumbled upon this document on the internet, and this is how I got a copy of this list. This has, as you can see, various life events, and then those are mapped to all these house grouping within the KP framework. This is primarily a horary uh, uh, kind of a list, more appropriate for the horary questions. As you can see, that most of these questions or many of these questions are related to the KP horary astrology. I don't know who is the author because nothing is mentioned on this document, but I want to appreciate whoever took the time to compile this information. Now, first let's have a look how these columns have been arranged. So the accident, the very first is accident. So within the KP Horary framework, it would be, will I meet with any accident in my life? That is how you put a query in the within the Krishnamurti system, especially the Horary one. And of course, in the natal, you generally look for the grouping that indicates the yoga for accident in a horoscope. Now, when it says the prime, which means the primary one, primary cusp one. So this is a cusp, primary cusp, and supporting, and then favorable, and then this is neutral, and this is unfavorable. So basically, if the question is that will I meet with any accident in my life, then you have to look at whether the primary cusp, which is ascendant over here, the rule would be the sublord of the ascendant. If it is a significator of 4-8, then the accident is promised. I'm just reading out from the list right now. I know that this is a bit incomplete, but I'm just trying to explain how this whole list has been laid out. So the ascendant sublord, if it is a significator of 4 and 8, then the accident is promised. And then it mentions about the favorable, neutral, and unfavorable. So it creates a little bit of confusion. But here, what it is trying to say is that, and that is what my understanding is, that if the sublord of the ascendant is a significator of 4, 8, it should also add 12. And at the same time, if it is the significator of these good houses, 1, 5, 9, 11, so these are good houses. In that case, what happens is a person meets with an accident, but there is a very strong chance of what we call escape from an accident. So that's what the favorable thing over here means. And the unfavorable is, of course, where the accident is going to happen. So that's what this whole particular the way these columns have been laid out. That's what they tend to indicate. So now you have a good idea about how this list has been made. Now, one of the questions that the very first question that you should have on your mind is that is this rule applicable for both the horary and the natal? This is very important for you to start asking. The it is true that the KP framework employs a particular broadly applicable methodology where we tend to assume that the rules for the horary and the natal or the birth chart are the same. But in many of my videos, I have pointed out that you can't possibly just blindly apply the horary rules on the natal chart. So there are some issues. When you ask these questions, that are all rules exactly the same for the horary and the natal, and then can these be applied blindly, which basically means that if you are looking for the accident rule within the KP framework, can this rule be taken as it is and applied blindly in the natal birth chart? Then you will run into several issues. Usually you will find the in the KP online thing that one set of rules can be applied to both. But we have to ask at least, two very important questions when we are applying the horary rules to the birth chart. One is the accurate birth time. Whenever we make use of the cuspal sublord, then we have to ensure that the birth horoscope has a very accurate birth time. And in most of the cases, that birth time is not. Another issue that is beyond the accurate birth time. It is not just the question of having an accurate birth time for the horoscope, but there is another issue, and that is about the a same set of grouping indicating multiple results, and this happens in the natal or the birth horoscope. So, and this problem I'm going to explain in a separate video. So the birth time plus this problem, these are very unique to the birth horoscope, and for this reason you will find that the portability of the horary rules blindly to the KP natal is a challenging task. But today in this session, I'm just going to focus on the horary aspect, and I'm going to share some of the, I would say, helpful hints and some practical pointers based on my own experience and observation, but related to the horary side of the KP framework. Now let me browse through this list and see if we can possibly port it on our or upload it on our Jyotish portal. Of course, we are not going to claim any ownership for this list, but let me see how valuable this could be. And now one of the event or one of the context is mentioned as status and respect, and then this particular grouping is given, the house grouping. But this is when you want to go into some more detail, then this grouping is not very helpful, because see, when the first house becomes the significator of the 10th, it brings in the status, but it will create a status and respect like it created for Gandhiji or for Vivekanand. So you see people who go into charitable services or who give their lives for some good volunteering work. So this only happens when the ascendant becomes the significator for the 10th house. Then it gives a status and respect. But when 10th house becomes the significator for the first house, then also it brings in status and respect. But the method of getting status and respect is different. Here somebody becomes like a CEO, or somebody gets into some very senior executive or secretarial position. with authority and power. So that happens when the 10th house becomes the significator of the first house. There is just a subtle difference, but still it's a remarkable difference. I read about it in one of the books by Bhaskaran. That was a nice point he made, that when first house becomes the significator of the 10th, it brings in respect and status. And when 10th becomes the significator of first, then also it brings in respect and status. Now let's look at some more. And when I am browsing through this list, you can also have a view of what kind of horary questions or context are given in this list. Some of them I have already starred for our convenience. So now opening bank account. This is a part of what I would say KP Muhurt. People have queries that when is a good time to open a bank account. So I don't know, many of you might not be aware that there is a very sophisticated section on the KP Muhurt, and that I'm planning a video, but queries such as this can be can easily be related to or tackled through the KP Muhurt. Now let's look at the change of place and transfer. Now here it says that the primary cusp 3, if it is a significator of 10 and 11, then the transfer will happen. This is not true. It should be actually 10 and 12. You see, when you put 11, then it means the fulfillment of desire or satisfaction, that kind of a thing. So when a person is transferred, that is one part of the question. Second part is that when I move to whatever new place, or when I am relocating to the new place, is the new place going to prove profitable for me? Whether I will be satisfied when I move to the new place. So all these things come from the 11th house. So it should be in two parts. The change of place and transfer is one part, where the 10th house, if it is also indicating the 3 and 12, then that is the time to that is the time most likely to have a transfer or a change of place. But in that combination, in that grouping, if the 11th is also appearing, then we can tell the person that that he or she will have a good time when they move to a new place. And then moving on, then we find occupying a new house. Right, this one, occupying a new house. So here the grouping is given as the fourth, which is okay. The fourth house is the primary cusp for the house, and then the 11. So 4, 11 is not sufficient because the standard combination is 4, 11 and 12, because the person has to is saying about occupying a new house. I don't know if it is about purchasing a new house or occupying a new house, but either way, whether it is occupying or purchasing, this combination 4, 11 alone is not sufficient, because these days the people, they don't construct a house, they just buy a ready-made apartment. So when they are buying a ready-made apartment or what is called as a flat, so that's a constructed property. So in that case, the 6th house and the 9th house, these two are also has to be there. Krishnamurti ji in his third reader has mentioned that if a person has to take the possession of a constructed house, which means a flat or even a bungalow or even an apartment, then these two houses has to be active. Sixth house also makes sense because these days a lot of people, if they raise a loan or they go for a mortgage arrangement. So sixth house also plays a role over here. But for occupying a house, which basically means getting the key from the builder or from the previous owner, the sixth and the ninth, that is important. And then moving on, now there is another, the imprisonment. Here he has mentioned that the primary, he or she, I don't know who the author is, the primary cusp is 12, and then the supporting are these. But if you read Krishnamurti's books, then Shri KSK has mentioned that especially in the Horary, that the 12th CSL should be Rahu. So this is a very important rule. If you have to figure it out or find out or be quite sure that this person is going to get into some trouble, then the 12th Kaspa Sublord has to be Rahu. Now this rule only works in Horary. You will not find this rule working in natal. But you can see that when the person goes through a bad time, then Rahu, Dasha, Bhukti, Antra becomes active in the natal. So at the cusp level, the rule doesn't work in the natal. But for the Horary, the rule is that 12th cuspal sublord should be Rahu. And then let's look at the unnatural death. So there also some house grouping is given. This is okay, but some more detail about the mode of death is required. Just saying that the person will have an unnatural death is a very wide kind of an answer, and to have some more detail about it. So I listed some of the points from the KSK's book. Let me quickly read these points. Connection between 1 and 8. This usually indicates in what we call as suicide. So, and whenever we talk about connection between 1 and 8, means the primary house, the first house significator is in the 8th cusp, or the 8th cusp lord is in the ascendant, or through their star lord there is some connection between 1 and 8. Then the native himself will be the cause of his own death, which basically means suicide. And then again some more rules are given, and if you go through these rules, then you can make it out logically. This is one good thing about Krishnamurti Paddhati, that once you get the hang of it, then you can build rest of the interpretation for other houses. So if the third house alone is connected, the death may happen during travel in a nearby locality. So when third house is there nearby, so you can easily inference that the 12th house is involved, then it is going to be in some unknown place. Then the role of these planets like Uranus, Neptune is also there. And so Uranus is, when it is connected with the 8th house, then strange and sudden death. You see, there is sometime when there is the explosion in some public place, like a terrorist activity or a bombing. A lot of people die over there. So that happens due to Uranus. So Uranus will bring that kind of a sudden death. Neptune is inclined to a mysterious death, and one of the very common mode of death that is associated with Neptune is by drowning in the water. Saturn will cause a lingering death. You see people when they say, oh, when during their old age, when they get hospitalized, they should not become a burden on their kith and kin. It basically means that they should not be kept in a hospital for a very long time, and where they just wait for a slow and lingering death. So cause of that is Saturn. Jupiter will give a peaceful, and Mars will causes the shock or the accident. So these kind of a detailing is also required. Just the grouping alone is not sufficient. Like I mentioned that I'm just going to focus on the horary side of the Krishnamurti Paddhati in this video. So let me share some helpful hints and practical pointers with you. Now, one of the most challenging for KP or for any astrology is to figure out whether a particular query is promised at all or not. Whether it is a Horary astrology, Parashari or KP or any other, this is the most challenging step. So if a person comes to you and the question is about the marriage, then obviously the very first step is to figure it out whether the marriage is promised at all or not. And this is where Krishnamurti's framework is promising, more promising, I would say, compared to the other framework. And within Krishnamurti's framework, the horary side is what gives you more confidence in analyzing whether a particular thing is promised at all or not. But over a period of time, there are a lot of initially the KP rule is that you look at the primary cusp, and then you look at the sublord, and then if that particular sublord is the significator of the favorable houses, then you say a query is promised. And if it is not, if it is only indicating the unfavorable houses, then you say it is not promised. And if it is indicating both, then you say both things are promised depending on the dasha. Now this is easier said than done. Even in horary, when you are looking at the sublord of any cusp, and when you're trying to look at the signification, you will not find a very black and white kind of a signification. You are bound to get confused, and it will take you some time to figure it out whether this particular query is promised at all or not. The Krishnamurti's standard rule of signification alone is not sufficient. That's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of other supporting rules have popped up. So let me discuss some of these rules which seems good to me, and I've applied some of these rules and they give you good results. So I'm going to highlight and start focusing on these rules one by one. These are all supporting rules for analyzing the step one, whether a query is promised at all or not. Now the Gulbarga theory. I made a video on the Gulbarga theory. This is a very simple rule that if the sublord of the number given happens to be the star lord of the moon or ascendant in the ruling planet, the reply is yes, otherwise no. So this is like I said, it's a very straightforward kind of a rule, and I created a video on this. Now the word Gulbarga comes from that place in Karnataka, and I think there was some study circle on the Krishnamurti Paddhati, and this is how they figured out this rule. And this rule has found a good reputation in the KP community. So that's the first supporting rule that you can make use of in finding out whether the query is promised at all or not. Now this rule has some more extension. That is, if the the cusp of the ascendant of the Horary number appears in the list of the ruling planet, then it is yes, else no. It sounds like a similar, but this is a little bit of more uh, kind of an extended rule. So let me explain you this, that now the ruling planets are, these are the ruling planets, and this is the order of their strength. The ascendant star lord, ascendant lord, moon star lord, moon sign lord, and day lord. So if suppose somebody gives the number, let's say somebody gives the number 1, so you know the sublord is Ketu. So Ketu has to appear in this list, and now Ketu is a node, so it can't be a ascendant lord or it can't be a moon sign lord. It has to be a star lord, the ascendant star lord, or the moon star lord. Rahu and Ketu should not appear through some representation, but they should appear directly. Suppose somebody gives the number 2, then the Venus, Venus can appear anywhere as a star lord or ascendant lord or the moon star lord or the moon sign lord and as the day lord. So this rule says that if the ascendant sublord appears in the list of the ruling planet, then the answer is yes for the query. Otherwise, it is a no. Now let's look at the third. Now this is this based on the retrograde rule from Sri Krishnamurti, where the cuspal sublord, if it is retrograde and if it is deposited in the star of another retrograde planet, then it is no. Else yes, but else yes has some further rule. So that further rule is that if the planet is if both the CSL and the star lord are not retrograde, then and the CSL is also a significator, then it is yes, otherwise no. And then there is another very interesting, this is from K.M. Subramaniam, Krishnamurti's son. I haven't tried this rule. This has been in my notes for quite some time. And today, before I was preparing this video, then I found this rule and thought of sharing it. What it says is, and Sri Subramaniam has spoken very high about this rule. He has mentioned that this rule works out very good for him. Very simple. Take a number from 1 to 249. See, it says take a number preferably. So that means if the person is giving any number, it doesn't matter. And then they divide that number by 12. So if the remainder is 0, 2, 6 and 11, the result is favorable. 1, 3, 7 and 9, the result is 8. 4, 5, 8 and 10, the result is unfavorable. And there one example is also given over here. You can try this rule. Like I said, I haven't tried this rule, but Shri Subramaniam has a good reputation in the KP community, and he has spoken high about this rule. So I thought of sharing this with you. Then there is another, that is the connection between the first and the 11th. You see, the 11th house has a special status in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. So when we say there is a connection between the first and the 11th, then this could be a connection through 2 or 3 possible routes. One is that ascendant sublord is the same planet, which is the 11th cuspal sublord. So there is a direct relation between the first and 11th. Or if the ascendant sublord is in occupying the 11th cusp, note down cusp, and we are talking about the Horary chart, then also there is a connection between 1 and 11. Or the 11th sublord is occupying the ascendant, then also there is a connection. So this connection also indicates that the the query, the chances for the promise of the query are very strong. So now how many we have? We have 1, 2, 3, and then we have the 5, and there could be more. You have to look at these rules. You see, you have to look at these rules, the way things work in the medical system. Let me give you an example. You see, when the doctors are trying to make it sure that somebody is suffering from diabetes, then they don't look at just one symptom. They look at multiple symptoms. So how many symptoms are there? Is that person very thirsty all the time? Is there a weight loss without going to gym? And is that person feeling hungry all the time? Has a blurry vision and the frequent urination? So all these things, or majority of these things, when they come together, only then they say that yes, this person has a very strong chance that he or she is suffering from diabetes. One single rule is not a blanket kind of a rule. You can't possibly depend. If the medical fraternity or the science community has evolved these multiple tests, that same thing we should follow in the astrology also. So that's why you have all these rules: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have already mentioned 5 rules, and there could be many other. And I'm going to share one of my own findings to figure it out whether a query is promised or not in a horary chart. Long back, I was the facilitator of a Jyotish study circle. So they were like 3 or 4 friends. And so at that time, we used to analyze a lot of horary charts, maybe about, I would say, maybe 40 or 50 charts within a month. So, and we used to devote a lot of time. Then over a period of time, I noticed that to figure out whether a query is promised at all or not, the ascendant sublord of the number. Let me write the finding. The ascendant sublord So you have to first look at the Horary number ascendant sublord, then you have to look at its star lord, and then you have to look at the sign lord of the star lord, and then you have to note down whether it's male or female. So I realized that if somebody approached us, and let's say that person was a male, and the Horary number, this particular pattern that I told you, it generates or it gives the result as a female, the end result as a female, then we notice that despite a very strong signification in the Horary chart, the query would fall through. And it was so obvious to us that this particular rule was just giving us very amazing result. So we used to make use of this rule, and this was long back. And after that, at one point of a time, due to some other priorities, I stopped doing astrology. But I remember that this came us. I don't know how we evolved this rule. We found it out, or something happened. But yeah, this is one my own personal finding that I'm going to share. And why why I'm sharing this thing is that when you yourself start putting efforts solving the Horary charts without caring much for whether the result is going to be uh, true or false, you have to put your effort. You have to be sincere about whatever you are learning. At some point, some divine help seems to happen and something will emerge. KP Horary framework is very amazing. And there are so many possibilities, even theoretically, there are so many possibilities that can emerge. And I'm sure at one fine morning, you will suddenly have this intuitive kind of a flash about some aspect of the of looking at the Horary chart, and that's going to be your own unique rule. So then that rule becomes something that you can depend on. But it all depends on how much effort you put into solving the Horary chart. So that's all in this video, and I will continue my discussion based around this list. In this session, I focused on the Horary, and in the next video, I will focus on the natal or the birth horoscope, where I'll share some helpful hints with you. Thanks for watching.